Okay, very good. Well, welcome everyone to the Fallbrook Climate Action Team's monthly community meeting. For those that don't know, we are the Fallbrook Climate Action Team. We have a website, fallbrookclimateactionteam.org, where you can see a lot of videos of our past speakers, as well as some other community information and some other information there. And we are a nonpartisan group of volunteers concerned about climate change. And so every month we bring you a topic on a different, with a different speaker related to climate, and that is held on the last Tuesday of each month. So that's why we are here. And next month, which is, let me get the date for you, the last Tuesday is the 31st, August 31st. We're going to have David Hollenbach, and he's going to be talking about nuclear energy. And he'll relate that to how it affects climate change, as well as some new ideas for nuclear and a little bit on nuclear storage. So looking forward to that on Tuesday, August 31st. So before we begin, just a few quick, simple ground rules. As Bill mentioned, we've got everybody on mute just to keep a nice quiet line so we can hear Darcy, our speaker for this evening. And if you do have a question that pops up in your head while Darcy is speaking, go ahead and use the chat function to type in your question. That way you don't have to try to remember it. And to get to the chat function, all you do is scroll down to the bottom of your screen, and you'll see a pop-up at the bottom, and one of those icons says chat. Click that, and another box will open up at the side, and you'll be able to type your message in there. And then when Darcy is done with her presentation portion of it, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. We'll unmute the line, as well as go through those chat function questions. So we'll do it that way. And then we've got Darcy Cook. Darcy is the district manager of the Mission Resource Conservation District. I believe I have that correct, which promotes the conservation of soil, water, and other natural resources in our local watershed. So I don't know, Darcy, if you have anything else that you want to add to your background or what you do, and then we'll go ahead and turn it on over to you, and we'll have your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to be here tonight. It's a pleasure to be able to tell you a little bit about Mission Resource Conservation District. It's typically kind of a well-known secret. I'd also like to thank Nancy Hines-Glazer. I don't see her here tonight, but she was the one who introduced me to Joy and to this group. So I appreciate that. I'd also like to mention that I have one of my board members in attendance tonight, Heather Conklin. And if you have any questions for her, if she manages to stick through the whole presentation, she might be available for questions as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So give me a moment to make sure I do that well. Okay, can everybody see it? Well, Tom, I can see you. Would you nod your head if you can see my screen? Okay, good, thank you. All right, so the only thing I do want to point out is we don't do work just in the watersheds, but I'm going to go into a lot of detail and basically give you an overview about what Mission Resource Conservation District is, and then talk a little bit about our programs. And essentially all of our programs address climate change in some aspect or another. But I'm going to start with our mission, and that's to promote the conservation of soil, water, and other natural resources in the San Luis Rey and Santa Margarita watersheds through effective planning to ensure a healthy ecosystem and to provide economic benefits and quality of life for landowners and the general public. Okay, so I'm going to give you sort of a past history of resource conservation districts. So Tom and Terry, I can see both of you. If it gets to be, too much, shake your head or something, so I'll move a little faster, but most people don't really understand about these districts, and they're actually pretty interesting. So resource conservation is established by Public Code Division 9, and as mentioned in our mission, the mission of RCDs is to conserve soil and water, control runoff, prevent and control soil erosion, manage watersheds, and protect water quality and develop water storage and distribution. RCDs are special districts. Special districts are like school districts and cemeteries and fire districts. So they're sort of the lowest arm of state government. And these are set up locally with their own locally appointed or elected independent boards of directors. In Mission's case, our board of directors is appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And in California, RCDs implement projects on public and private lands and educate landowners and the public about resource conservation. RCDs are a vital link between federal, state, and local programs and help these agencies meet their conservation goals. A brief history. So you all probably remember about the Dust Bowl crisis in the 1930s. And ironically, there's another one happening in the Midwest now. But poor agricultural practices wrecked the soils. The soils were not able to absorb water, and then the winds blew away. The winds were exacerbated by the drought and blew away the topsoils. So the federal government established the Soil Conservation Service. Most of you probably heard of that. And then in 1938, California authorized them as soil conservation districts set up around the country. And in 1971, these were expanded to include both fish and wildlife habitat resources, and their names were changed to resource conservation districts. In 1978, Proposition 13 resulted in reduced funding from property tax revenues to these districts. And so that sort of changed the tenor of our funding. And I'll get to that in another minute. There's currently 95 RCDs throughout California, and they cover some 85% of the state. Obviously, the intensely urban areas of the state do not have an active conservation district. And we partner with local communities for on-the-ground conservation on a voluntary basis to care for California's land, water, soil, and other natural resources. So Mission was established in 1947, originally as a Middle San Luis Rey Soil Conservation District. And we engage with our community in Northern San Diego County as a unique non-regulatory, that's important, we're non-regulatory, and we're boots on the ground. We provide services for free technical assistance, education, and training programs. We work with landowners and residents, municipal governments, public agencies, nonprofits, and state and local organizations. The initial efforts of Mission centered on the need to store runoff water and correct erosion, because in those days, Fallbrook area was primarily dry farmed grain and beans. And in 1971, the name was changed to Mission Resource Conservation District. This is a map of our district. It's kind of an odd shape. As you can see, it goes around Camp Pendleton and it goes to the Riverside border. So this is where we actively do our work. In other areas, we have MOUs, memorandums of understanding, for example, with Team RCD, that's Temecula, Elsinore, Anza, Murrieta. And we do some work with them. And in the past, we've also done some work with the RCD in Greater San Diego, which really takes up much of the rest of San Diego. And then there's the Upper San Luis Rey Resource Conservation District, which we've also collaborated with in the past. How are RCDs funded? We do not get money from the state. We receive tax monies. It's a minimal allocation based on our district boundaries. And then the rest of our funding is through competitive grants and with collaborative partnerships. So these charts just give you an idea. They're not updated. Sorry about that. I really need to update these, but it gives you an idea of the budget percentage from our tax budget. And then also if you compare the taxes, the tax basis is the small little green amounts, and then our grant allocations. Those are competitive grants. These are some of our collaborative partners. I'm sure you recognize many of these logos. We work pretty closely with USDA and CDFA and the California Department of Conservation, with NRCS, the Wildlife Conservation Board. We have a big contract with the San Diego County Water Authority, and we work closely with the Farm Bureau, mainly as a partner. and also with the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts, which is, just as the name implies, association of the California RCDs. This slide is just really because I found it a little bit comforting, because given how things are changing so rapidly in the last, especially in the last few years, the same issues that we were working with in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s are essentially the same issues that we're dealing with now. So for some odd reason, I find that a little comforting. Not that these issues have not been effectively addressed, which is really the truth, but the fact that it's still the same things. So soil erosion, soil fertility, water supplies, runoff, and the need for education and technical assistance. Now I'm going to go into our programmatic areas a little bit. So we have 3 basic program areas. The first is sort of our national resources area, which at this point really focuses on the watersheds. And this work is with 2 main grants, one through SANDAG and one through the Wildlife Conservation Board. Excuse me. And these primarily are to deal with arundo, which is the giant reed. That's what this picture is here. It's Arundo donax in a riparian area. And this weed is invasive and it clogs up the riparian areas, and it's also highly flammable. So it's an issue for wildfire mitigation. And so our staff, our natural resource specialist, works to remove these plants, and in the past other non-native plants, and restore these areas with native vegetation, in both watersheds. We also work in the San Luis Rey hydrologic unit because we have agreement with Orange County to work in their areas as well. Agriculture, we have a lot of agriculture programs, so I'll try and run through these a little bit. It's obviously been a big part of our mission since the very early days. And one of our main partners is the San Diego County Water Authority, and we've been working with them since the 1990s on water conservation. We work with them on both residential, landscape, and agricultural systems. Our technical assistance includes connecting growers to agency resources, and some of those that we work with are the California Department of Food and Agriculture, the University of California Cooperative Extension, and the Natural Resources Conservation Service. One of our biggest ag programs is through the San Diego County Water Authority, and this has been ongoing since at least the 90s. And we provide irrigation system audits in the San Diego County Water Service area to support financial assistance incentives so that growers will be incentivized to install more efficient irrigation systems. There's 2 main tasks. One of these are irrigation system evaluations. It's called the IEP, Agriculture Irrigation Efficiency Program. And that's where we work specifically with the growers for irrigated crops or trees. And then we have the Soil Moisture Sensor System cost share program. And this assists growers with the adoption of irrigation water practices that use soil moisture sensors. So basically that helps to reallocate irrigation water to where it's more needed. And these are both rebate programs. We also have done work with the CDFA for their Climate Smart Healthy Soils programs. Last year, we finished a demonstration program for healthy soil management at 2 areas in the greater Fallbrook area, where we provided technical assistance to 2 producers to improve their soil health, which would then improve the carbon sequestration of those soils. We just were awarded a new Healthy Soils program. This is an incentive program where we'll work directly with small and disadvantaged farmers to provide technical and application assistance for them to apply to incentive programs. We have a USDA program where we teach agroecology. This program is geared at new and disadvantaged farmers. And we are partnered with MESA, which is in Berkeley, the Multinational Exchange for Sustainable Agriculture, and Cal State Northridge Institute for Sustainability. And that'll go on for another couple of years. If anyone's interested in those cohorts or know of anyone who would be interested in this 12-week training program, which is followed up with a fellowship, there's information on our website. And then we also are completing what we call a SWEEP grant, the State Water Efficiency and Enhancement Program. And this again is another way for growers to get assistance to implement more efficient irrigation systems. Finally, we have a crop swap program, and we have this with Team RCD, and we provide technical assistance for growers to consider converting their high water intensive crops to something that has lower water use. So we're probably dealing primarily with avocado growers and citrus. And then finally, we have an NRCS program that's a partnership on agricultural sustainability. And this helps to ID priority areas for conservation to help with growers and provide financial and technical assistance to improve, again, the usual water management, soil, and crop nutrient impacts. And finally, we have our landscape water management program. We have two main contracts here, again, with the San Diego County Water Authority and also with Orange County's Metropolitan Water District. These programs are somewhat similar, where we provide irrigation evaluations for both commercial and residential properties, make an assessment of their sprinklers, the water use, look at the past 3 years water use and assess if it makes sense given the rainfall. We also help with turf removal and with best management practices for irrigation. And then finally, more than ever now, San Diego County has a lot of challenges due to climate change, and our unique geography, our wildlife and plant habitats, and our critical sensitive watersheds will be affected differently than other parts of the San Diego region. MRCD in the past has been instrumental in helping the county achieve its conservation-oriented goals, and we're currently trying to expand our carbon drawdown and climate adaptation programming with new collaborative partnerships. We're looking at developing an ag sustainability program with the tribes to develop an indigenous seed propagation program. That's a training program. I should have put indigenous seed propagation training program. Also looking at how to develop better integrated pest management strategies given climatic change. And also we're going to apply for an ag vets program to provide training for vets, ag program training for vets. We're looking at water conservation and stormwater runoff projects with the county's watershed protection program, and looking at developing a heat island mitigation project to support the region's climate action plans. Looking at developing pollinator habitat corridors as part of both the ag and the landscape programs. And then finally, to assist with wildfire protection and mitigation programs. So that basically ends my overview of what MRCD does. So I'd be happy to close this down and open it up for questions. Oh, okay. The first question I see here is, please explain the heat island mitigation project. So I have an intern at a local college who is a GIS student, and he was interested in doing an internship. So he's going to start this coming month in August and help develop programming to address sort of the disparity of heat islands in the greater probably the greater San Diego region. He wants to use GIS to first identify where the worst areas are, and then hone that in and be able to look specifically at what might be disadvantaged areas. I guess there's quite a correlation around the country, maybe around the world, with disadvantaged areas having less tree cover, less vegetation, and more subject to this heat island issue. And then as part of his internship, he will help me develop a proposal to submit to get funding to pay for this program. The idea being to use GIS to identify the areas and then to, over time, to identify the changes of mitigation with vegetation. I hope to work with the Save Our Forest people. As you probably all know, they have a really great program where they work with 5th graders to grow a tree. They learn about trees, they learn about sequestration, and then the trees are grown out at our community garden. And then in 6th grade, they're given the tree back, which is now a little seedling, and they plant it somewhere in the region. Typically it's been in Los Higueros, but I think that's a really great model for working with communities that have heat island issues to get people of all ages in the community involved. Okay, I got a lot of questions, hang on.
Yeah, hey Darcy, you missed one right before that one. What crops replace avocados and citrus?
Okay, sorry about that. I just saw what popped up.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm not usually on this end of the Zoom meeting. Okay, that's a really good question, and I'm sorry you asked that because I don't effectively have that answer. So I'm going to have to, instead of just winging it, I'm going to get back to you because my ag guy can tell me that. One thing I know they do is they thin the orchards. They take out the older trees and they top them, but I think they replace them sometimes with wine grapes specifically. That takes less water. But I'll get back to you on that one. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, my voice doesn't carry well. Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, heat island mitigation. Do we have a wildlife conflict education program? No, we do not. That's not come up. And that's something I'll learn a little more about. Do we support FPUD switch over to using Santa Margarita River water? That is a good question. And one thing about RCDs is we're basically not political, and we work to support the community given the contracts that we have. And I don't feel like I'm really able to effectively answer that question. I have a few opinions, but I don't think that's what you want to know. And if I were to request an irrigation assessment and help for improving my residential irrigation, what would happen next? Okay, that's a good question. So you go on the San Diego County Water Smart page, and it will have, it'll say start here, and you basically put in your information, and it goes through the district where your specific water district, and you put in your information, then that comes to MRCD. We'll call you back, we'll schedule the assessment, and then typically, if this is for like I'm guessing this is just a residential assessment, one of our technicians will go out there, take a look at your sprinkler heads, look at the controllers, take again a look at the report of water use over the last 3 years, and then make recommendations. Okay, maybe replace some of these sprinkler heads, maybe switch to weather-based controllers, consider, excuse me, changing out some of your plant cover, things like that. They're all easily accomplished changes, and it's optional. I mean, you don't have to do any of these things if you don't want to, but these are all recommendations based on best practices to help you conserve water. All right, let me just see if I got gophers. Oh my God, I wish I had an answer to that. I live in Cardiff, and I'm on a canyon, and I think the gophers are going to make my yard fall into the canyon one of these days. I'm just riddled with tunnels, and basically we just trap them. Okay, similar to the dust bowl. Yeah, well, I try not to follow it too closely because I honestly find it so depressing. But it turns out that the same situation has happened in the 30s where the big ag practices of
Hey, Darcy,
monoculture.
can you just
Yeah.
repeat the question? I don't think we heard the question. I know it
Oh,
was,
okay. I'm sorry. And can you hear me okay?
yes.
Okay. The question is, just skipped. Okay. You mentioned that we're currently in a situation similar to the Dust Bowl. Could you talk more about that? Where? What's going on? I can just talk about it as in an overview, because honestly, I try not to read about it too deeply since it's not here, it's there, and it's awfully depressing. But it's the same causes that resulted in the Dust Bowl in the 30s, bad agricultural practices, which is monoculture, basically depleting the soils, not switching crops, too much fertilizer, and then compounded by drought. And so there's lots of these dust clouds, and it's a huge area in the plains. I guess I'll have to look that up and send a link as well to that. So I'm sorry I couldn't give you more specifics. Yeah, I'm honest. I don't have a lot of answers. Oh,
If
I'm
you want
sorry.
to follow up and send those to a link to me, Darcy, I'll get them out to the people who asked the question.
Okay, that would be great. I think that's all the questions so far. But I think the main takeaway I want you to leave with as local residents is that there is this entity in your area that's working to help conserve your general lands. You can reach out for technical assistance. We can certainly answer questions. Our website needs a lot of updating, but it's certainly a place to start. And I have brochures I can hand out. And I have new staff, but they're good staff. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Heather. So nice having a board member on here. Heather has sent the link for irrigation assessments to the Water Smart Checkup in the chat, if anyone wants to grab it there. And I now have another question. Okay, I mentioned turf removal. I'm near a county park that has lawn and they run their sprinklers every night. We only are working with parks, and not so much parks, we only work with large areas to remove grass when people come to us. So for example, commercial enterprises, sometimes golf courses, other areas decide they want to cut their water use and want to look into turf removal. The only problem with this incentive program is it no longer works for homeowners because you have to have a significant amount of turf to receive the rebate. But we'll go in there, we'll make the assessment, see how you could remove the turf, what your water savings would be. And again, if it's a large enough area, then that helps to, that's the approval for the rebate. And then, then there's the water savings as well. So county parks are different, and it would be nice if they could find an alternative to grass. On our budget slide, it seems like our dollar amount was over 1 million in 2013, but less now. Our budget is going down, but also there's sort of an interesting thing about a couple of our programs. Because they're rebate programs, the dollar amounts look higher than they are because that money comes to MRCD and then we pay out the rebates. So it's a pass through. A number of our programs are like that. So we don't really have we do have $1 million budget, but it's not, unfortunately, an internal budget. Yeah, and this is a good point. Somebody mentions that about dust mitigation. Removal of turf can lead to dust. So in the turf removal programs, part of the recommendations made is what to replant. So the idea is not to leave it as bare earth. There's no cost assistance, I don't think, for the replanting, but the San Diego County and I believe the Orange County water entities also provide free guidance on, and sometimes incentives on replanting and doing water smart planting, xeriscaping, if anyone's interested in changing out their landscape, there's some really great resources on the San Diego County Water Authority site. One more thing I might mention about the San Diego County Water Authority, they have a new program that's coming out. It's not going to launch until August 10th, and it's a stacked program. So it's the basic incentive program for irrigation, efficiency rebates, but there's more, the rebates are greater because it's stacked between San Diego County, the Metropolitan Water District, and then the county. So they've just about doubled the rebate because of that. And that will last for a pretty long time. So if anyone's interested in those water smart programs, you might want to take a look about the 10th of August and see if the additional rebates interest you. Okay, let's see here. We do provide assistance. Okay, I'm sorry, the question. Do you provide assistance for Arundo removal? Yes, so under the program that we have with SANDAG, we go out and we assess the areas every year, and that assessment usually starts about September. And we don't do the same area every year because it does grow back, but once the applications once it's been removed, it grows back slowly and sometimes doesn't grow back. So we check different areas in the watershed each year. If you think that you have Arundo in your area, please give us a call and we'll see about getting it on the list for this year. And the next question, I noticed you have a native plant example display in front of your building. Yeah, we actually have a demonstration garden, and I hope you haven't been by there too recently, except for maybe after Monday, because we terminated our landscaper because there were some issues with they weren't taking care of things. Anyway, we have 3 main demonstration gardens. Along the side on Vine Street, we have an agricultural demonstration garden. There's some citrus trees, a couple of varieties of avocado, and coffee. I think there's actually 10 different varieties of coffee growing along there. And those are sort of a test case and kind of a research project for 2 things: to test the varieties of coffee to see what grows here in Southern California, and also as correlation for a project up at Whittier and at Cal State Northridge to look at the carbon sequestration capabilities of coffee trees. Then in the front on Alvarado, we have a Mediterranean garden with a little patch of lawn. That's a very slow growing lawn. And then on the other side, we have a xeriscape garden, which is, got decomposed granite and very low water plants. Okay, hang on. I'm getting more questions. Okay. Oh, someone put in a drip irrigation system last year, and are the rebates only for future programs? No. So if you feel your drip irrigation system perhaps isn't efficient, or maybe you weren't exactly sure what you were doing when you installed it, you can sign up for a Water Smart program and they can come make an assessment. You can't have a Water Smart assessment more often than every 5 years. But if the system is new, it can still be checked. I mentioned the USDA agroecology program. Is that only open to farmers, or interested people can do it too? Yeah, that's actually, we haven't turned anybody away because with COVID, it's been virtual. And the focus is really on new and disadvantaged farmers. But until we meet the quota of how many people we have in the class, we don't turn anyone away, and it's free. Is MRCD the administrator of the community gardens on Alturas? Yes, so that's an interesting question. So I've only been at MRCD for just a little over a year. Probably around 2015 or 16, the then district manager, Judy Mitchell, started looking into doing a community garden. I obviously wasn't around at that time, but it took a while to get the whole thing off the ground. And the land that it's on is actually leased to MRCD by FPUD. And so we manage the garden, and we try to manage this specifically for the low-income community members along Alturas, people who don't have a place to grow food, for their families. They don't have any yard or place to grow. So it's a small area. We've had other community members come in and help out and make it more presentable. Roger Bodart, many of you probably know Roger. In the past few months, he's just done a yeoman effort to help clear things out. He planted 10 jacaranda trees from Save Our Forest, so that we'll have shade in the ensuing years, and they'll be beautiful. There's 31 plots. Pretty much all of them are taken. And there is a real community feeling there with the gardeners, but it's a highly local community, and it hasn't been a place for events or other things. And certainly with COVID, none of that has happened. Are we going to publish our results with coffee trees? I planted one, but it died, and I'd love to grow a couple of coffee trees. The research is not being done by MRCD, and we probably won't. There's nothing that we'll publish on the trees being grown in our area, although we are keeping an eye on how they're growing and where they do best. One was mistakenly planted around the corner in the back of the building, and that one's about a third of the size of the others. The ground was really well amended before these trees were planted. It was also amended with microbial nutrients. So these trees are just currently loving the situation. The geisha trees seem to be the tallest. That's a variety. The geisha variety seems to be growing the tallest. And of the other varieties, and I couldn't say right now, but I'd love to tell more about the coffee trees another time, but I'll have to get a little more learned about that. Well, our other board member, Scott Murray, is an organic farmer, and he was the one who planted Jason Mraz's orchard with the, it was an avocado orchard. He removed half of the old trees and interplanted them with coffee. And that, I think that's all geisha, because geisha was originally what they figured was the best variety to grow in Southern California. And if you remember a couple of years ago, when he had his first harvest, it was sold at Bird Rock Coffee Roasters, I think the La Jolla one, for $35 a cup and for $700 some odd a pound. They actually decided to price it at the cost of production, and it all sold out. So we won't be doing that. Let's see. When will you have some results of the carbon sequestration? Okay, this is a related question of the coffee plants. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look into the work being done with our partner at CSUN and Whittier and see what they've actually done. And I'd be happy to report on that. Those groves are also new. They've only been planted in the past couple of years, but I know they're being tested by a cadre of students on a regular basis. Let me just make this note, sorry. Okay. And more information and sign up. Oh, thank you, Heather. She gave the link for the agroecology course here in the chat. You can also email me tomorrow if you have any other questions, or you can check on our website if you feel like doing that. So the coffee tree that was planted in the wrong place, what was it? Too hot, not enough water. It's in a shady spot, so I don't think it got enough sun. And I'm guessing it also didn't get sufficient water because lavender was planted along that same area and half of the lavender plants died. So I think that was an irrigation problem as well. Oh, and the coffee. No, it's geisha. So I'm sorry, the question is that gacha coffee? It's geisha, like the Japanese courtesan, Geisha, geisha. And please don't ask me if it's Japanese because I actually don't know how it got its name. I have to look that one up too. I think that's it for questions for now. I'm sorry I couldn't answer things a little more articulately, but I'm happy to follow up.
No, that was excellent. Thank you.
Very good. So any follow-up questions, just let us know. And I don't know, Darcy, if there's a contact that if somebody does something after the call that maybe we could type in the chat. Oh, there you have
Yeah,
it. Our
Heather
office
did it.
phone number. Yep, and we've got the email there. Thank you, Heather, for doing that for us. So we've got Darcy's email as well as the office phone number in the chat section. So feel free to take that down. And if you have any follow-up questions, we'll let Darcy know, or contact our team and we'll get a question over to Darcy as well for follow-up. So Darcy, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And to everyone who joined us on the call, I know we're finishing a little early, but that's okay. We'll enjoy the summer. And we will have a feedback form coming out as a follow-up to this meeting. And then join us again, August 31st. That's the last Tuesday in August for our presentation on nuclear. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, thank you, Darcy and Heather.
My
Appreciate it.
pleasure. Yeah, thanks, Heather. Good night.